Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Amna Gul from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. We're back with the course Communication Skills for Media, bearing the code GMC 232. It's our fifth lecture, and the topic today is Understanding Communication Basics. Well, what we'll be discussing today is we'll start off with a brief introduction to public speaking, then we'll follow that with models of communication. We need to understand these models in order to better understand communication skills, and then we'll elaborate upon the elements of the communication process. So let's start with the introduction. Well, the human's ability to communicate using formalized systems of language sets us apart from other living creatures on this earth. Whether these creatures whether these language conventions make us superior to other creatures is debatable. But there is no question that overall, the most successful and most powerful people over the centuries have mastered the ability to communicate effectively. In fact, the skill of speaking is so important that it has been formally taught for thousands of years. And you are also being taught the same. The ironic feature of public speaking is that while we recognize that it is an important skill to have, many of us do not like or want to give speeches. For example, whenever you had to speak in class, since we have already had a speaking opportunity, so most of us dread such opportunities. There are very few who like to speak, who have a desire to speak in public. That is a minority chunk of the public. But the good news about public speaking is that although it may not be on the top list of your favorite activities, anyone, I repeat, anyone can learn to give effective presentations. You don't have to look like a celebrity or a star, or you don't have to use fancy words to be a successful speaker. What is important is that the audience understands you and remembers what you have to say. So by learning and using the techniques provided in these lectures, we'll discover how to create engaging speeches and present them using your own personal delivery style. So you won't be copying me or anyone. You will be using your own style. Let's move forward. No matter what your ambitions and interests are, developing speaking skills will benefit your personal, professional, and public life. So, for example, if you are in journalism, you're doing this degree in journalism and mass communication with the view that you will go towards print media, for example, even then, public speaking is going to benefit you. Developing your speaking skills is going to benefit you, and I'm going to discuss all these benefits. I'm just going to discuss these with you in brief detail so that you get an understanding, and then we'll move forward with the rest of the things. So I said it's going to benefit you in your personal life. See, people don't just give presentations on jobs or in their classes. At times we are called upon to give speeches in our personal lives. For example, it may be a special event, or when you're doing volunteer work, you may have to introduce a guest speaker at an event, or present or accept a certificate, for example, in your department. Or there can be other activities when you have to speak. Remember, people have your parties where someone has to speak up, someone has to thank the faculty, or different things that, or for example, receive a guest. So actually, developing the skill to give these types of speeches can help us to fulfill essential roles in our family and community. There are many times when you have to speak up in family matters as well. Especially, for example, there are times when there are funerals and you have to speak at those, or certain things. So another great personal benefit of public speaking is that it builds self-confidence. It's no surprise that public speaking or speaking in public is scary. But by engaging in the activity, you will build self-confidence through the experience. And for example, if you actually intend to pursue something in your professional life that relates to it. So obviously that helps a lot. So let's move towards the professional life, how it benefits people in professional life. I'll start off with mass comm and I'll go towards the other disciplines as well. For example, let's think about TV announcers or us teachers, lawyers, entertainers. They must be able to speak well. But most other professions also require, or at the very least, they can benefit from the skills found in public speaking. It is believed that 70% of jobs today involve some form of public speaking, and it is like this has been researched upon. With the recent economic shift from manufacturing to service careers, the ability to communicate with others has become crucial. For example, top CEOs advise that great leaders must be able to communicate ideas effectively. They must be able to persuade, build support, negotiate, and speak effectively in public. But before you even start a career, you have to get a job. Effective speaking skills make you more attractive to employers, enhancing your chances of securing employment and later advancing within your career. So whichever job you are applying for or you intend to apply, you usually have to go through an interview. So that is your opportunity of public speaking. See? So it actually helps you out in your professional life. Even when you are students, there are many times you need to sort things out between yourselves or between your with your faculty members. So having strong, persuasive communication skills helps you a lot. Now coming to the public life, learning about public speaking will allow you to participate in democracy at its most basic level. Public speaking is important in creating and sustaining a society which includes informed and active participants. Even if you do not plan to run for office, for example, some of you intend to, some of you don't intend to. Learning about public speaking actually helps you to listen more carefully to and critically evaluate others' speeches. Listening and critical thinking allows you to understand public dilemmas, form an opinion about them, and participate in resolving them. The progress of the past century involving segregation or women's rights and environmental protection, these are all a result of public advancing new ideas and speaking out to others to persuade them to adopt changes. So that was just an overview of public relations, or the advantages of just an overview of advantages of public speaking. Now we'll move towards the models of communication. Since it should be clear by now that public speaking happens all around us in many segments of our lives. However, to truly understand what is happening within these presentations, we need to take a step back and look at some of the key components of the communication process. For that matter, I'll be discussing just two models with you here. After the models, I'll actually go towards the key components or the elements of the communication process so that I can give you a better understanding of what is happening. The first model that we'll be discussing is the linear model of communication. It was the first theoretical model of communication which was proposed in 1949 by Shannon and Weaver for Bell Laboratories. This three-part model was intended to capture the radio and television transmission process. However, it was later adapted to human communication and is now known as the linear model of communication. The first part of the model is the sender, as you can see, and this is the person who is speaking. The second part of the model is the channel, which is the apparatus for carrying the message, for example, the phone or TV. The third part of the model is the receiver, and this is the person who picks up the message. In this model, communication is seen as a one-way process of transmitting a message from one person to another. That is why it is called linear model, one way, one direction, one line. So if you think about situations when you communicate with another person face to face, or when you give a speech, you probably realize that this model is inadequate. Communication is much more complicated than firing off a message to others. So we'll move towards the second model of communication that we'll discuss. that is the transactional model of communication. One of the most useful models for understanding public speaking is transactional model of communication. In the transactional model, communication is seen as an ongoing circular process. We are constantly affecting and are affected by those we communicate with. The transactional model has a number of interdependent processes and components, including encoding and decoding processes, which is mentioned as like encodes, decodes in this picture. Then the communicator, which you can clearly see, the message, it's written in the mid, messages in black. The channel, which is like encodes, decodes, is connected to messages via channels. It's written under the line. And noise, you can see noise written in a couple of spaces on the upper and the lower end of the figure. So this is some information about the model. Now we'll actually discuss the elements of the communication process, or we'll just go with all these things one by one. I would like to start off with the first thing, that is encoding and decoding. Encoding refers to the process of taking an idea or mental image, associating that image with words, and then speaking those words in order to convey a message. I'll repeat. Encoding refers to the process of taking an idea or mental image, something that is in your mind, associating that image with words, and then speaking those words in order to convey a message. So if you wanted to explain to your friend the directions to your department, you would picture in your mind the landscape, the buildings, and then you would select the best words that describe the route so your friend could find you. Decoding is the reverse process of listening to words, thinking about them, and turning those words into mental images. So if your friend were trying to find his way to your department, he would listen to your words, associate these words with landscape and landmarks that he knows, and then would form a mental map of the way to get to you. So, like for example, let's do it again. When you're telling someone a direction, so you consider, okay, for example, it's a friend who's coming from outside the university, and then you think that you have to enter the main gate, and once you enter, you come across this roundabout, which is called 0 point, and then you take a right, and then you go to the extreme end of the road, and the road takes a turn towards the left, and then you go towards the uphill building, and then inside the building, it's like this and that and whatever it is. So you have images in your mind, you sort out words, you link those images with words, and then you convey that information. Now your friend who is listening to you, that person would listen carefully and then think about the words that you are speaking, and he would form mental images of those words and associate those with whichever mind map they would form, and then they'll get to you. So it is that kind of a thing. Now coming to the next term, which is communicator. The term communicator refers to all of the people in the interaction or speech setting. It is used instead of sender and receiver because since we saw sender and receiver in the linear model, so it is used instead of sender and receiver because when we are communicating with other people, we are not only sending a message, we are receiving messages from others simultaneously. When we speak, we observe others' nonverbal behavior to see if they understand us, and we gauge their emotional state. Once again, why do we use the term communicator? Because there is no single entity which is a sender only, and there is another entity which is a receiver only. Both of them are senders as well as receivers. That is why we use the term communicator. And I repeat that when we speak, we observe others' nonverbal behavior to see if they understand us. For example, when I'm taking a class with you, or So I actually observe, are you nodding? What kind of eye contact are you giving me? What is your body language? Are you slipping in your seat? So different things, they actually tell me what your understanding level is, what is your emotional state. If you don't give me an eye contact, I understand you are not able to understand. So this kind of information we gain from these observations, it is known as feedback. For example, over the telephone, we listen to paralinguistic cues. I hope you remember we had studied these earlier. Like the cues such as like pitch, tone, volume, and kind of fillers. Aha, acha, okay. So that kind of words. This means that communication is not a one-way process. It is not linear. Even in a public speaking situation, we watch and listen to audience members' responses. If audience members are interested, agree, and understand us, they may lean forward in their seats or nod their heads, have positive or neutral facial expressions, and provide favorable vocal cues such as like laughing when you share something humorous, or they say, okay, yeah, that is right, anything like that. If audience members are bored, they disagree, or are confused by our message, they may be texting, they may be busy with their cell phone or looking away from us. They may shake their heads, they may have unhappy or confused expressions on their faces, or they may present oppositional vocal cues like, I don't think so, that doesn't make sense. Thus, communication is always a transactional process, a give and take of messages. There is a transaction going on. So I hope this is clear that who is a communicator. Then we'll move towards the next element, which is message. The message involves those verbal and non-verbal behaviors enacted by communicators that are interpreted with meaning by others. So message has both verbal and non-verbal components. The verbal portion of the message refers to the words that we speak, while the non-verbal portion includes our tone of voice and other non-vocal components such as personal appearance, posture, gestures, and body movements. Same is the case with eye contact, the way we use space, or even the way that we smell. For instance, the person who gets up to speak in front of you, if that person is wearing a nice suit, he'll be interpreted more positively than a person giving the exact same speech wearing untidy clothing. So if there is ever a conflict between the verbal and non-verbal aspects of a message, people will generally believe the non-verbal portion of the message. To test this, you can try it out. Tighten your muscles, clench your fists at your sides, pull your eyebrows together, purse your lips, and tell someone in a harsh voice, "No, I'm not angry." See if they believe your words or your nonverbal behavior. The message can also be intentional or unintentional. When the message is intentional, this means that we have an image in our mind that we wish to communicate to an audience or a person in a conversation. And we can successfully convey the message, the image from our mind to others' minds with relative accuracy. An unintentional message is sent when the message that we wish to convey is not the same as the message the other person receives. Let's say you're returning from an outing with your parents, and your parent asks, "Did you have a good time?" You did have a good time, but you are distracted by something that you're checking on yourself, so you reply in a neutral tone, "Sure, I had fun." So your parent may interpret your apathetic tone of voice and lack of eye contact to mean that you did not enjoy the time, when in fact you actually did. Thus, as communicators, we cannot always be sure that the message we wish to communicate is interpreted as we intended. Having said that, we'll continue with the rest of the elements of the communication process in our next lecture. These were simple, easy things that I just discussed with you. In the next lectures, we will continue with the rest of the things. Thank you.